Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi Robert Barr here, and I'm delighted that you're joining me for this Shabbat service. An opportunity for us to step out of our daily routines, to gain perspective on where we've been and where we're going, to consider our most deeply held values and principles. For 6 days we speak. Tonight, we listen. 6 days we build. Tonight, we rest. 6 days we take care of others. Tonight, we nurture ourselves. 6 days we work to change our world. Tonight, we are renewed by what is eternal. 6 days we plan for the future. Tonight, we are enveloped in the present. 6 days we eat and drink in haste. Tonight, we savor the taste of bread and wine and feel the bond of the world that feeds us. 6 days we teach. Tonight, we learn. 6 days we hear the clamor. Tonight, we listen for clarity. 6 days we struggle to expand our influence. Tonight, we are dissolved in a greater influence. 6 days we focus our vision on the task at hand. Tonight, we look beyond what we can see. May each of us find our Sabbath peace. Shabbat Shalom. Again, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr of Congregation Beth Adam, our bricks and mortar congregation, and our Jewish community, our online congregation. Two sides of the same coin. We began streaming services on our Jewish community more than 10 years ago. We did so because we recognized there were people who couldn't come to our congregation physically. There was some reason, a barrier perhaps, where they lived, perhaps an illness. And we recognized that there was an opportunity for many people to share in what we were doing and are doing. This was all, of course, before COVID, before our pandemic, which has made streaming services even more important. To know that we're together, even though we are sheltering in our own homes. We're part of a larger community. You're part of a larger community because you're here tonight. And Congregation Beth Adam, we've been giving voice to a bold, dynamic Judaism for 40 years here in Cincinnati, Ohio. A Judaism that speaks to who we are, what we believe, what we value. We know we're not like our ancestors. We have information that they didn't have. History has shaped us. We have insights and understanding that need to be given expression to. We need to keep creating a Judaism that is viable, dynamic, relevant, bold, more concerned about what the future is going to be than what our ancestors did in the past. And you're part of that because you're joining me tonight. Now, what's great about an online congregation is you can comment, you can chat with one another as we go through the service. If you are chatting, please be respectful, be inclusive, be embracing. Let us know where you're participating from. It's always heartening to know the reach of our community and to know that so many different people from so many different places are part of who we are. I also recognize that many people watch this service in our archives, that 6 o'clock Eastern Time isn't convenient for them. So whenever you're watching, whether live at 6 o'clock Eastern Time or in archives, you're here. And you can always know that you're part of this larger community, that you're not alone, that together we are joining voices and ideas to give expression to bold, dynamic Judaism. Now we continue our service with the lighting of the candles. On Shabbat, we light the candles. Candles bring forth light, illuminating the darkness. Candles offer us warmth, providing comfort. Candles awaken us as we reach for possibilities. As we light these candles, let us use their light to stretch beyond ourselves, touching others, bettering our world. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. So again, the beauty of an online congregation where we're streaming is I can interview people who can't be physically here at 6 o'clock. And frankly, with social distancing, I wouldn't be interviewing them next to me anyways. And I've been able to reach out to people. And tonight, I am delighted that Michele Marsh is going to be joining us. That may not be familiar to you, but many of you probably know her. She is in that iconic movie, Fidler on the Roof. She played Hodel, the second daughter in the movie. And this is an opportunity for her to share with us her experience of getting the part and being in the movie. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope you find it as interesting and as stimulating as I did. I am delighted to have a very special guest tonight joining us for service, Michele Marsh, who many of you, I probably may not know her name, but you probably actually do know her. Because 50 years ago, you were filming the iconic movie Fidler on the Roof. You played in that movie, and we're going to talk about that experience and more. So thank you for joining us from the hills, the mountains of Southern California, in a town that I love, Idlewild, which is a great town. So Michele, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you played you were one of the daughters in Fidler on the Roof. How?
Played Hodel.
And you sang the song Far From the Home I Love, which is a beautiful song. I have to say, before I got online with you today, I listened to it again. It is magnificent. It really is. It was just, and what you did with that song was remarkable. So it was released in 1971. So its 50th anniversary will be soon, really 6 months away. Yeah. But you were filming it in, you said Yugoslavia? Is that where the film was?
Yes, but we recorded, we recorded the songs and rehearsed the numbers in London, in Pinewood Studios. And we were rehearsing with John Williams on the piano. And then when they all of a sudden had the orchestra there, I mean, it was so moving, it was so thrilling with the big orchestra, you know. So what we did was we recorded all the music so that when we shot it, they played it over loudspeakers and we were lip syncing to ourselves.
Okay.
That's how they did it. So can I go through the whole story?
How did you get, yes, absolutely. How did?
Only because I just think, okay, all right. So I got my bachelor's degree from the North Carolina School of the Arts, a wonderful school, by the way. Upon graduating, the school sent me to the TCG, Theater Communications Group auditions, where representatives from all the repertory companies come and you audition with 2 monologues, one contemporary, one,
traditional, classic, like Shakespearean? Yeah. Okay, you're an actor. That happens.
Yeah, and a comedy and a drama, all of that. So I went to the TCG auditions, and I met the managing director for the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco.
Okay.
Because Bill Ball, who was the artistic director, was doing some kind of cure in Spain. So Bill Bushnell hired me to San Francisco. So I ended up in San Francisco, and I was hired on a journeyman's contract for $85 a week. Woo!
That was a big deal, I'm sure.
So I was also working the switchboard, as well to make ends meet. And you did, you understudied and you played small parts and the thing. During that time, I met Joel Rudnick and fell in love with him. And eventually we moved into a little apartment in San Francisco, in the Clayton, Ashbury, Clayton area. Bill Ball came back and said, we've got to cut back. We got to, so they let go most of the people that were on journeyman contracts. Joel was on a journeyman contract as an actor, but also as a stage manager, so he stayed. I was looking for work then. I took over the role of Lucy in Your Good Man, Charlie Brown on North Beach. Mm-hmm. Then that show closed, and all of a sudden I was, at a loss. And Joel came home one day and said, listen, they're looking for understudies. There's a production opening here of O Calcutta. Do you know?
Wow. Sure, that was a radical. Okay, sure.
I said, because I was brought up very strictly and very modestly and all of that. And I said, okay, it's understudy, so I won't ever have to go on. Okay, I'll audition. And they hired me. And so, I would show up at the theater and all of that. And maybe, I don't know, very, very soon, they came to me and said, after I had been rehearsing and, as understudy, we're opening a company of O Calcutta down in Los Angeles. Would you open it? And I said, no, no way. Oh, here, let me show you.
And there was nude scenes in okay. That was early. Was that before Hair?
No, it was after Hair.
It was after Hair. Okay. I couldn't remember.
Call this the most controversial musical hit.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that wrote, it's all sketches to do with relationships and sex and all of that. And it was a musical review. You sang and danced and all of that. Samuel Beckett wrote one scene, short. Jules Pfeiffer,
Wow.
John Lennon,
Really?
Sam Shepard. I mean, there's a whole Leonard Melfi. So anyway, this was old Calcutta. Okay.
Right.
So I said, no way, no way. I'm not interested. In the meantime, Joel breaks up with me because he said the next step is to get married, and I'm not ready to do that. And I was devastated.
Mm-hmm.
I was devastated. 6 weeks later, I get a call, and they tell me that O Calcutta is opening in Los Angeles in 2 nights. They fired a girl. Please come down to Los Angeles.
Right.
By then, I couldn't get out of San Francisco fast enough.
Sure.
Every street was depressing. Joel arranged for me to stay with his aunt in Beverly Hills, Sandy Rubin. And her husband was Aaron Rubin, who was a big TV producer, director, and all of that. So he rented a U-Haul. I didn't have that much stuff, but I had, how I got around was on a Vespa 90, a little motor scooter. And so that was to bring the motor scooter down to Los Angeles so I could. So I rehearsed, we opened the show. And in the meantime, Sandy, it was a couple of weeks. And what happened? Now, this didn't happen in San Francisco. This didn't happen in New York. In New York, this was the longest running to date musical reviews, over 6,000 performances.
Wow.
On Broadway. Oh, Calcutta. So this didn't happen in New York or San Francisco, but in LA, after a performance, they came backstage. They said, put your things in your lockers. They're taking you down, and they're going to book you for indecent exposure.
Really?
So I mugged and fingerprinted.
Wow. So
at the Sybil Brand in downtown LA. The show continued running after that, but I guess somebody had to make a statement or something like that. In the meantime, Sandy, being connected, heard that they were having auditions for Fiddler on the Roof, the movie. Mm-hmm. And so she called Norman Jewison, who was the director, his secretary. His secretary's name was Golda.
Okay.
Golda.
Coincidental.
And it was his office was on Samuel Goldwyn Studios. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, fine, have Michele send her picture and resume into us. Sandy said to me, no, you take your picture and resume in person. That's when you could walk onto studio lots. There weren't any guards or anything. Yeah. So I walked in, I met Golda. She said, can you sing? Mm-hmm. Can you dance? Uh-huh. Sure. So she took my picture and resume. She said, you know that Norman has already auditioned here and in New York and in London. He's in Israel right now. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So about a week later, I get a call from the casting director, Lynn Stallmaster, and he called me in, and he had me read for him. And he said, have these 2 scenes and these 2 songs memorized for tomorrow for Norman Jewison. Come back to Samuel Goldwyn Studios. 2 scenes, 2 songs memorized. Well, I had never heard the music. And I will do a little backtrack. When we moved to the Monterey Peninsula, there were lots of little theaters there. Right. And my father had seen at one point that they were doing a production on the Wharf Theater in Monterey of The King and I, and they were looking for children to play the children. So he took me to audition. Mm-hmm. That opened up my passion. Right. And if I wasn't in a production at the Circle Theater in Carmel or the Wharf Theater, I was ushering because I was just constantly there at the theaters.
But you had never seen Fidler before all this?
No, no. And when I was 14 and a half, they did a production at the Circle Theater in Carmel of Tevye and his daughters. And I played Belka, one of the younger daughters, in that production. So that when Lynn Stallmaster, the casting director, told me about it, I knew the story.
Sure.
No, I didn't know the music. So I went out and I bought the record and I listened to it, went over the scenes and all of that. And the next day at 2:00, I showed up and I read through it. Norman gave me some adjustments and I read it again. And then at the piano was John Williams.
Wow.
Who won the Academy Award for, Johnny accompanied me and I played, I sang and he played. And after that came the inevitable question from Norman. So what have you been doing lately? I said,
get my mugshot.
I'm in Calcutta, but I hate it. And he looked at me and he leaned back. I was there opening night. Hilly Elkins, the producer, is a friend of mine. And I thought, I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
Yeah.
The next day, I got a call that they were going to give me a screen test in about a week.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, being brought up a Christian, mm-hmm. I knew nothing about Judaism, and I set out to study and find out what Judaism was all about.
In a week. You had to do it in a week, and it was also Eastern European. It wasn't Judaism of LA. It was Eastern European Judaism in a week. Okay, how did you do that?
Just so I would have some. Yeah. So I ended up screen testing with, I think it was either 3 or 4 different perchiks. I would screen test, and I would find out that they wanted me to test with another perchik.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, Joel wanted to get back together with me.
Mm-hmm.
I had found an agent, and I was told that I would get an answer whether I got the part or not in about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back up to San Francisco to wait. The very last day of the second week, I got a phone call that I was Norman's choice, but he wanted to hear me sing one more time. He thought that my voice was a little breathy. I drove down in a VW Bug all the way down back to LA, singing at the top of my voice.
Of course.
When I got to Golden Studios, he sent me to the sound stage to work with John Williams. Gave us about a half hour, and when he came back, I sang for him, and he paced the whole inside of the sound stage, and he came back and he said, "You've got the part."
Wow.
I know.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
Well, I know, and here's the thing. If Joel hadn't broken up with me,
mm-hmm.
I would never have taken the job of Old Calcutta in Los Angeles. I would never have been with Sandy, who arranged. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's so fateful. That's what
Absolutely. So you get before we go, I have a question, but before we get to the next question, so when you did multiple screen tests with different perchiks, is it to look to see who you interacted with best? Is that the idea behind it when they did multiple screen tests? Or were they looking for a different perchik at that point?
I think we're looking for which perchik they wanted, I think.
Okay. And so you get the role, and then you go to...
So I went back to San Francisco because this was like at the end of 69, I think, the end of 69. Oh, the other thing, Norman was worried that because I think I was 21 at the time and Hodel was supposed to be 18, and he kept kind of looking at me to see the wrinkles.
Oh, no.
If I looked young enough to be Hodel.
Well, wasn't there was always a story I had heard that in order to sort of soften the movie, that they filmed it through a silk stocking. That Fidler always had this very soft. The edges of the film were very soft. It was not the look of it. That was always the story that I had heard. I'm sure it's not true, but it was
I never heard that.
Okay, well, my guess is your sources are a lot better than mine. But I remember seeing it because it's a sort of I guess as a Jewish kid growing up, this was like early. I would have probably been thinking about being a rabbi, maybe not quite yet, but going to see. I guess my mother said you have to go see Fidler on the Roof. It's your roots. So how did you study and learn about Judaism? I mean, to understand sort of both the Jewish
library, also in. Oh, I had notes. Oh shoot, I didn't bring them with me. They're different books to read and mysticism, Judaism and mysticism and all these different.
Well, that's so interesting. And then also understanding Eastern European culture, because Shalom Aleichem, I happen to like Yiddish literature. I actually took a class in it. And it's a very interesting, Yiddish literature represents sort of a moment in Judaism when there was massive cultural change taking place. And Shalom Aleichem was one of the gentler satirists. He was not. There were other ones that were much more harsh and much more pointed, and he was the gentler of one of the Yiddish writers. So it's a great story, Tevye and the Milkman. And they sort of truncated it for I guess at the play, and then becomes the movie. And the play was at 64, I think, or something like that.
Yes.
And it was Zero Mostel was really the iconic sort of figure. And
know that that Zero Mostel was like just too big for the screen,
He's Zero Mostel. I think that was sometimes there's certain people who are always themselves, even when there's somebody else.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And I think most people didn't know Topol. I mean, he was
No. I think he had played it in London. I think he had played Tevye in London in production.
Right, but as an American, in the American theater world or movie world, people didn't know him. Zero Mostel was Zero Mostel. He had done probably Johnny Carson show already multiple times, doing what he did.
Yeah, and actually, Chaim Topol,
right,
was only, I think, maybe just 10 years older than me, and he gained weight. Really? And they grade him, and they aged him so that he would look like he could be my father, our father,
Right, yeah, no, because certainly that's how he comes off. And then, so you prepare.
So April is when we were flown to London to record and rehearse the songs and numbers, and we were there for about a month. Joel joined me after about a month. And I had asked the AD, I said, my boyfriend is Jewish, and could he have a part in this? He said, well, have him grow a beard and come in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And Joel went in to meet the AD, and they hired him so that you can see him with the rabbi in the synagogue. In one scene, he's holding the chuppah, during the wedding sequence. This one is Joel. He played Mendel, the rabbi's son.
Okay.
Oops, can you see?
Yeah. Wow. Yes, I remember that.
Joel. Anyway, that's Joel.
So we only have 2 or 3 more minutes. So I want to pull together. So you.
Okay.
And then you filmed in
Yugoslavia. We stayed in Zagreb. One of the things that happened was that we shot the exteriors. And they had a big tent with the interiors built in there. And what they discovered was you could be whispering at what side of the tent and the voice. So we had to go back to London to shoot the interiors. And at the very end, we weren't able to shoot Far From the Home I Love because Yugoslavia was having what do they call it? Indian summer, Indian summer. So we came back at the end of shooting all the exteriors, and then the interiors in London, we got with a skeleton crew with just Topol, myself, and Norman, skeleton crew. Well, we had like 10 days of sun and sun
right.
and sun. finally and the train that they used came from the Ukraine, but it was an old train, and so it traveled on tracks that were more narrow, so they had to put the train on a train and then build tracks that would go in a circle so that so I could say goodbye to Papa at the railway station.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so finally we got it. We finally got some clouds.
That's so funny. So I appreciate you taking the time. I should tell you a story. So probably 30-some years ago, 35 years ago, I walk into the Jewish market in Cincinnati, and there's a stretch limousine outside, which sort of was curious to me. And inside is Theodore Michele buying challah and wine because he's on tour with Fidler.
Wow.
And I walked up to him and I introduced myself, a rabbi in Cincinnati, and I introduced that he had done a CD for kids that my kids always listen to, and how much it meant to my kids. And I said, so what do you, he said, well, in Fidler. I said, well, what are you doing at the Jewish market on, it's like 2:00 on a Friday? He said, I always go out and buy wine and bread, challah, so that at Friday night before the show, I make a kiddush. I make a blessing for wine and bread before the casts. So that was my brush with Fidler on the Roof. It wasn't quite like yours. Well, yeah, this is so interesting. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing. Oh, there you go.
There you go. And it was the whole program with, all the pictures.
That's wonderful. Well, we're going to end now, but I'm going to ask you. So if you'll do another interview, you'll stick around for 20 more minutes, and we'll do another interview. Can we try to do that? Okay, so we're going to end right now. I'm going to let everyone know, Michele and I are going to end right now, but we're going to have a chance to talk about other things that Michele has done, because this is Fidler on the Roof is only one part of a very successful and long career.
Well,
so thank you, and we're going to continue our service in a moment.
Okay.
I have to say, I really found my conversation with Michele very exciting, very interesting. And because we had so much to talk about, next week, we're going to be playing and listening to the second part of that interview. I asked her to go on, and she had other stories to share. If you haven't seen Fidler on a Roof for a while, go watch it. I watched this just again recently. It holds up so well. And having heard stories about Michele's role in it and how she got the part, and some stories she shared with us and stories she'll share next week, it makes the movie even richer and more textured for me. So I appreciate her taking her time and sharing with us. We're going to continue our service, turning now to our memorial. It's our custom once a month on our Jewish community in Beth Adam to read the names of deceased loved ones. Now that our bricks and mortar congregation and our online congregation are becoming more intertwined as a function of the pandemic, I read the names of our bricks and mortar members, their deceased loved ones, as well as members of our online community, their deceased loved ones. If you have a deceased loved one that you're holding in your heart tonight, whose name is not going to be read, either you're not part of Beth Adam or you didn't send me the name, please feel free to type in their name now. Share with us that you too had no loss and no grief. Because part of being in a community is knowing that there are others who help sustain us, give us strength, that we can lean into each one another, even though we're separated by distance. Grief, while personal, is a part of the human condition. And I think we're strengthened knowing that there's others who pause and grieve with me at this time. The cycle of life unfolds. Just as we rejoice in new life, we mourn its final ending, the inevitable death of those whose lives have touched ours. Today we join voices with others as we say aloud the words which help us recall those we've lost. We remember the moments we have shared, the laughter and the tears, the beauty and the pain. Inevitably, as our lives intertwine, as we have touched one another, we've been influenced, changed, enriched by their presence. And so, as we mourn their loss, we celebrate their life. Thus the cycle continues, their lives forever marking the continued unfolding of our own. we pause at this time to reflect upon those who are no longer among us. This moment of remembrance links life to life and generation to generation. And tonight we recall recent deaths of Mark Kranitz, Carl Salway, Edward Cohen. And we recall those the anniversary of whose death occurs in this month of July. Robin Abrams, Aaron Alexander, Donald Bell, Morris Bernstein, Anita Cohen, Kenneth Doctrow, Merle Edwards, at Edith Eisenberg, Arthur Epstein, Nancy Fisher, Wayne Fisher, Sam Fleischer, Morris Frieder, Frank Fuchs, Martin B. Garowitz, Bruce Hatcher, Grace Hirsch, Dorothy A. Jocelyn, Carol Swit Kaplan, Sam Korn, Herbert Kuppen, Cecilia L. Lebo, Gray Lichtenfeld, Freddie Linder, Joseph Linder, David Mages, Charles McBride, Paula McBride, Kenneth J. Michelson, Max Mordecai Nurak, Arnold Payton, Lois A. Rosen, Sylvia Schreiber, Peggy Solonic, Sadie Stein, John William Stuttenberg, Phyllis Scher, Harry Vogel, Rhoda Wint, Lloyd Berggren, Marvin Raymer, and Bonnie Reed. And if you have names that you hold in your hearts this night, please feel free to write them at this moment. We recall the memories of those names we just heard as we think about those who've died as a result of the disease that is changing the face of our planet. Those who have died defending and reaching out, defending principles of justice and peace and of democracy. First responders who are entering hospitals and working with people who are ill and risking their own lives that have died as a result of the disease themselves. We think of people who have died as a result of violence and terror that mar our planet. We think of those who have no one to remember them this night. And we think of all our loved ones whom death has taken from us. Ein b'dei amavet hakoach, va'akormah shenipun b'lev. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. With our courage and our strength, we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage will remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared is not lost. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. Im dama'ot be'einenu, bet et evlenu nishmor al zecher achuvenu. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. Zeker tzedik livracha, may the memory of good people bless our days. Let the Sabbath be a time for believing in what could be and seeing with new eyes. In this serious world, let us take ourselves less seriously. In these harsh times, let us listen for a soothing word. While the world around us unfolds in an instant, let us judge each other a little more slowly. Let the Sabbath shine a light into a corner of ourselves where hope is renewed. Let us remember a reason to be joyful, a way to be gentle. Let the Sabbath be a time for opening up. Let us find strength in our dreams and trust in our strength. And now we have a virtual challah sharing and wine sharing. If you have some bread or you have wine, bring them out now, or juice or whatever you have. But we read these because it's about connecting with one another. That even though I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and you are somewhere else in Cincinnati or somewhere else in the world, we are connected to each other. And this act of sharing bread, even virtually, and sharing wine or juice connects us one to the other. In Jewish tradition, we share the challah as we celebrate the Shabbat. We are reminded that challah, a twisted loaf of bread, sustains and nurtures the life of our bodies. May the sharing of the challah sustain and nurture our hunger for knowledge and understanding of the world around us. May the sharing of the challah sustain and nurture our connection to those close by and those separated by distance and by time. May the sharing of this challah encourage us to reach out to those across our rooms, across the hallways, to those across our desks, across the miles, May the sharing of the challah strengthen and enrich our coming week. Baruch Amal Kapenu, blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch Hazon Ha'adam, blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch Lechem Ha'aretz, blessed is the bread of the earth. And then if you have some juice or some wine, join with me. On Shabbat, it's our custom to share wine or juice with family and friends and community. It reminds us that it's not enough for us to quench our physical thirst. We must nourish our spirits as well. As we celebrate Shabbat, may this wine remind us to live our lives to the fullest and to embrace the joys and pleasures that life offers. Bruchim chachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim chachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. And so we say, l'chaim, to life. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we were able to share the Shabbat service together. As I said, next week I'm going to be playing, if you will, because it's pre-recorded, that conversation that I had with Michele. So join us and tell your friends. And if they missed the first part, they can always come to bethadam.org, go to streaming services, go to our Shabbat services, and there's an archive so they can watch the service and catch up with what they missed. Invite them to do so. Invite others you know who might find Beth Adam meaningful, its voice resonating with theirs. As you know, those of you who are joined us through our Jewish community, that we're moving all our information and all our programming to our bethadam.org website. It's allowing us more opportunities and more, frankly, control to be able to add information more easily and more regularly. So explore the Beth Adam website. You'll see there's classes coming up, and there's my podcast and new information being provided all the time. And we're looking in more ways to invite members from our Jewish community, those who've only known us via the internet, to come and join us more through our other activities via Zoom. So I hope you join me next week to share another Shabbat service together. And we close with the words we close with each week. May we know blessings those who are near. May we know blessings those who are far. May the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.